without further ado, we'll introduce Mark Gold, and he's a professor at UCLA, and as I said, he's the author, co-author, or one of the authors, whatever he'll tell you, of the Sustainability Bill of Rights.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here today. What's interesting is, normally I am in the reformer role, and I've spoken in this room quite a few times as the president of Heal the Bay, talking about what's going on in California on ocean pollution issues, or how are things going in Santa Monica Bay. Today, actually, I'm flipping hats, because this may be one of the most, maybe the only radical thing I've done in the environmental career. And I want to give you a little bit of background on where that came from. So as a volunteer, I've chaired Santa Monica's Task Force on the Environment now for, 21 years. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with the city here in Santa Monica that cares so much about the environment. It's such a core value of who we are here in Santa Monica. And you can see it with the Sustainable City Plan and what's happened in this city over the years, and really trying to do everything possible. You've seen this transformation in this campus. 10 years ago, really wasn't much going on here in the environment on campus here. And now things have changed so dramatically. So it's been a pleasure to do that. I worked at Heal the Bay for 23 years. I was their first hire in 1988. And about 6-7 years ago, I started having a midlife crisis. Now, my midlife crisis was not, I'm very happily married, so it had nothing to do with leaving my wife. I'm not really into sports cars, so that really wasn't it. And I couldn't afford a Tesla, so if I was gonna get one, But from the standpoint, I was having a career crisis, and I love Heal the Bay dearly, and it's made such a huge difference in this community in Southern California coastal waters. But I kept running into an issue that the existing regulatory framework that I had been using my entire life to really try to make a difference was helping us, in essence, do a good job here at home. But I kept seeing that the environment was getting worse and worse, especially on a national basis and on an international basis. And so all these flaws in the regulations that were there, whether it's the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Coastal Zone Management Act, you name it. I could, I teach at UCLA and go over every single water law that you can imagine, with my students. But they're all hugely flawed. In many ways, from the standpoint of truly protecting our right to clean water. And I've noticed in communicating, even with my own board of directors, with all the hundreds of volunteers at Heal the Bay, that as things changed over time, the improvements in water quality became more incremental. And the solutions became more technical, more acronym driven. So if I started to talk to you about total maximum daily loads and how that was going to clean up Santa Monica Bay's beaches, the room would be empty inside of 5 minutes. And that was the challenge that we had, was that somehow the environmental movement and the regulations that we had so relied on since the Clean Water Act was passed in 1972, Clean Air Act 1970, National Environmental Policy Act 1970, all of those regulations had now become so technical and so driven in that way. I'm sure you guys heard the climate change bill that failed 4 years ago was somewhere around 1,500 pages long. So from the average person's point of view, that doesn't speak to any of you from the standpoint of what are we going to actually do to shape the future here. So that's been my struggle, and one that really I want to get into with this following speech, because it has nothing to do with my work at Heal the Bay. When I first started there, we had a bay that had a dead zone. We had fish with tumors and fin rot. Those days are long gone. Water quality has improved dramatically within Santa Monica Bay, and they're all great successes that I feel quite proud of. And even the beaches, from the standpoint of the summer months, are so much cleaner than they used to be and safer for people to go swimming and surfing. So back to Santa Monica. Santa Monica's Task Force on the Environment and the city itself, really a great success story in the last 20 plus years. The city's developed and implemented one of the most successful sustainable city plans in the nation. Santa Monica has always been a community leader in social justice and environmental protection, and the Sustainable City Plan has really helped frame these issues very, very well. The plan is voluntary and includes goals and metrics in numerous categories, including environmental benefits, environmental health, resource conservation, open space, housing, transportation, education, human dignity, and starting this year will even be the arts. Despite the fact that Santa Monica developed and implemented this far-reaching plan, it has not served as the desired model for the region that we all had hoped. Santa Monica is it. They had their first plan in 1994. There's no other city in LA County that has a comprehensive sustainable city plan. Very unfortunate. Just recently, in my current role as a professor at the UCLA Institute of the Environment and Sustainability, I was part of a team that developed a short-term, 8-year sustainable city plan for the city of Los Angeles, Vision 2021 LA, in the hopes that it would inform the mayoral and city council race dialogue on the environment. Unfortunately, despite the fact the plan was very well received, and both mayoral candidates, Wendy Gruhl and Eric Garcetti, have endorsed it, it hasn't drawn out the environmental dialogue that we all had hoped. It really has not been the focus of this race in any way, shape, or form. So, however, the longer I stayed at Gila Bay working on these local issues, the more I realized that solving environmental problems was not enough. For every Santa Monica Bay that's an environmental success story, there are 50 other environmental failures. Nearly 1 billion people don't have access to an adequate water supply, and 2 billion people don't have access to adequate sanitation. Deforestation and loss of biodiversity are occurring at unprecedented rates. Our oceans are on a path to lose all viable populations of large species of fish by 2050. And climate change impacts from increasing greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere also continue to grow. All very daunting, all very overwhelming. So during the peak of my doubts, a colleague of mine in the environmental movement, a woman named Linda Sheehan, who's an environmental attorney, expressed similar concerns. She was the head of the California Coastkeeper Alliance, which manages all the different water keepers in the state of California. We talked about how our nation, despite its long environmental legacy, had not passed a comprehensive environmental law since the Clean Air Act reauthorization under the first President Bush. So it's been all the way since 1990. That means most of you guys were not alive the last time that we had federal comprehensive environmental legislation. That's pretty disturbing. We talked about how our environmental success stories on water quality and coastal resource protection, our areas of specialization, were incremental wins, not nearly enough to protect our nation's receiving waters for people and aquatic life. And also, our wins under parts of the Clean Water Act involving once-through cooling power plants or total maximum daily loads didn't resonate with the public like stopping massive sewage spills or preventing giant fish kills. Even the Deepwater Horizon explosion and subsequent spill of over 200 million gallons of crude oil didn't lead to national environmental movement reinvigoration. Heck, 2 years ago, we even saw plastic bag manufacturers sue the city of Manhattan Beach over their plastic bag ban under the California Environmental Quality Act, literally turning around one of our state's most important environmental laws and using it to stop progress in the environment. Somewhere along the way, protection of the environment became more of a fad than a moral obligation or a way of life. Environmental laws started to get used to actually harm the environment. Corporations began to enjoy the same rights as people, and thanks to the Citizens United Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court actually affirmed those rights. And we see the results in our political campaigns with unlimited corporate money influencing the outcome of elections in an unprecedented manner. As a way to push back on these issues, a rights of nature movement began about a decade ago. Most notably, it has been seen in anti-fracking and mining ordinances in areas desperate to protect local groundwater supplies. And you're starting to hear a lot of that in California now. Pittsburgh is the largest city that passed such an ordinance. Ecuador actually passed a constitutional provision stating that nature had the inherent right to thrive. In Santa Monica, the city is taking a somewhat different approach. Last year, it passed a resolution for a Sustainability Bill of Rights. The City Council unanimously declared that people have the right to adequate and clean water that's safe to drink, air that's safe to breathe, soil that is safe for planting, a sustainable energy future. People have the right to a sustainable natural climate. They have the right to a safe, sustainable food supply. And biological communities and ecosystems have the right to exist, flourish, and evolve. But this was just a resolution. It didn't have the force of law, and once again, a strong Santa Monica idea didn't catalyze a larger environmental movement. In this case, the need for an environmental rights movement. In California, Assembly Bill 685 was signed into law last year. This law established that each and every Californian has a human right to affordable and accessible, safe and clean drinking water. Local Assembly member, then Mike Eng, authored the groundbreaking legislation which affirmed safe drinking water as a fundamental right. Last month, the City of Santa Monica City Council unanimously approved an ordinance establishing sustainability rights for everybody who lives and works in the city. It's a combination of last year's Sustainability Bill of Rights resolution, Santa Monica's Sustainable City Plan, a response to the failure of existing environmental law to protect our environmental rights, and a response to the Citizens United Supreme Court case. The draft ordinance has very strong whereas clauses and strong findings, including that our current rate of population growth and growing rate of resource consumption is just not sustainable, and it's destructive to the air, water, and soil that humanity and our world's ecosystems depend on. The fundamental stated rights in the ordinance are as follows. All residents of Santa Monica possess fundamental and inalienable rights to clean water from sustainable sources, marine water safe for recreation, clean indoor and outdoor air, a sustainable food system that provides healthy, locally grown food, natural climate that supports human life and the environment, comprehensive waste disposal systems that do not degrade the environment, and a sustainable energy future based on renewable energy resources. Also, natural communities and ecosystems possess fundamental, inalienable rights to exist and flourish in Santa Monica. To effectuate these rights on behalf of the environment, residents of the city, and this is probably the radical part, may bring actions to protect groundwater aquifers, atmospheric systems, marine waters, and native species within the boundaries of the city, so they can actually take a legal action to protect these rights. All residents possess the right to self-governance and to a municipal government which recognizes that all free governments are founded on the people's authority and consent, and that corporate entities and their directors and managers do not enjoy special privileges or powers under the law that subordinate the community's rights to their private interests. And these rights, of course, are environmental. All of these rights are now enforceable by the people of Santa Monica. That means literally you as someone who lives in Santa Monica, if you feel that these rights are being impinged upon, have the right to sue to protect those rights. In addition, the city will review compliance with the Sustainable City Plan and the Sustainable Rights Ordinance every other year. And all of the city's environmental laws will be folded into one specific environmental sustainability section of the city code. So section 13 will now be all sustainability and environmental laws in Santa Monica will all be in the same section. This is a bold ordinance that's groundbreaking in many ways. However, if Santa Monica is the only city that passes such an ordinance, then we will have achieved absolutely nothing. We need nothing short of the environmental movement's transformation into the environmental rights movement. And it will not happen with the passage of an ordinance in Santa Monica or even the right to clean water law in California. It will not happen if the movement is led by the usual suspects in the environmental movement. We cannot wait for Congress or the United Nations to solve our nation's or the Earth's environmental problems. An environmental rights movement must be a grassroots movement that resonates with the masses. It must be student-led. It must be community-led, worker-led, clergy-led, congregation-led. Without such broad-based support, climate change, refugee populations will continue to grow, biodiversity will continue to diminish, and global illness and death caused by pollution will continue to expand. By fighting for our fundamental environmental rights that apply to each and every one of us, and communicating to the masses in a manner that resonates with everyone, rather than just the highly educated, there is still a chance to protect, preserve, and sustain the planet for many generations to come. Thank you.